to our channel Trailhead Ranger and J. And today we are doing this video where we are learning some of the common Salesforce error messages when we are working with flows, LWCs, or Apex triggers, Apex classes, or anything in Salesforce. These are just some common error messages. These are not all the error messages. You could get some of the error messages apart from these. So if I have mentioning whatever the error messages, I will be showing you. If you will get any of the error messages apart from these, please let me know in the comment section so you and I can fix those together. And also whatever the error messages we will be discussing, we'll be learning how we can fix them with the some of the very basic approaches. So let's get started. First error messages we can encounter, that is error message would be an internal server error has occurred. So in that case, what you can do, you can refresh the page or clear browser cache or trying accessing that page in different browser. This can happen when you have deployed LWC into the to your org, and then you are trying to test it out. You can have that error message there. You can see that error messages for Visualforce pages, for Aura components, even in on the community cloud as well. Second error message is insufficient privileges. So these kind of message also you could have for all the things, that is LWC, flow, Apex trigger, Apex class. In developer console you could get this, or even after LWC on error screen you could get on the UI front on the org. So what you can do, you can ensure that user has appropriate permissions or contact the system administrator to grant necessary permissions if you are not having that level of access in your org. Then third is page not available in lightning experience, that you can get on the community cloud. You can check if the page is lightning ready, that is if it is having the correct version or if it is having the correct parameter set, and you can enable lightning experience for that profile using which you are logged in your experience cloud site or your org, or you can create a lightning version of the page. Then next error message is component not found. That's also valid for LWC. So you can verify for this error messages that if the component exists and if it is referenced correctly in the lightning page or component. So suppose you are having a LWC, and in the targets of that LWC's meta file, you have mentioned that it should be available for app page, but you are trying to deploy you are trying to drag and drop the component on the record page. So there you will either not find the component or you will get error as component not found. The next error message would be invalid component markup. That's also for LWC, and that's also a valid error message for LWC. So for this, how you can fix it, you can check for syntax errors or any unsupported features in the component markup. Suppose I would say, like basic, you are using lightning card markup in your LWC, in the HTML file of LWC, but somehow you have mistaken the spelling, or if it is not ending correctly, then you could get that error message, and you need to check your syntax error or any unsupported features for that. Then next error message would be cannot read property of x of undefined. That is, x could be any of the variable or any of the property which would be using in LWC. So suppose we, again, it could be spelling mistake, or even in the caps or small letters, or suppose if we are getting a variable from child component in the parent component, we have defined it differently in parent component, and then on UI it's wrong. So then you can get or if it is not having a correct permissions, that is it is not defined, sorry, it is not having correct permission or visibility, like it's not having a correct track property, or decorator. So how we can fix it, we can ensure that the reference property, that is that that X variable or parameter exists and is properly initialized before accessing it. Then next error message would be unexpected token, that is less than variable, not variable, less than, yeah, symbol, sorry. So we can fix it by checking syntax error in the component markup or JavaScript code and correct them. So again, in markup, if you remember of HTML file, we use less than symbol, then our markup, and then greater than symbol. So we could be mistaken there, like we could have typed it twice, or we might have missed it to type it in all of the markup or any of the markup. So for that also we could get this error. The next error message is action failed, X is not defined. Again, X is here is nothing but any variable or any property. So to fix that, we need to ensure that the referenced action, that is that particular X, is existing in our controller or helper and is properly defined. Yeah, here is spelling mistake, but please you can understand, right? And this error could occur for our Aura helper class, Apex controller, Apex helper classes, trigger helper classes. So there you could find that those kind of error. And then our next error message could be sorry, next error message is Apex controller method X not found. So again, if we are trying to access one of the method of Apex in the LWC or any of the other component, but we are trying to uh, access different spelling of that method, so that issue could occur there, or even if it is not having proper visible property, like if we have not initialized method with aura enabled, then we could not access that apex method in the lwc. So those kind of things we need to check. So yeah, here it's written that verify if apex controller method exists. So that means you can check for its spelling, and if that method is actually there, or if we have deleted it or missed it in our controller. And then we need to check if it is properly referenced in the lightning component. Yeah, so again, for that like if it is first of all, in apex you can check if it is there with the aura enabled initialization. Then in lightning component you can check if we are fetching it from a correct apex class with correct method name, and then it is used in lightning component correctly. Next error message is Apex CPU time limit exceeded. Usually we get this error for Apex class or Apex trigger. So we can fix this by optimizing the Apex code to reduce CPU time, and we can consider using batch processing or any of the asynchronous operations for large data volumes. Then next error is script error occurred in lightning component. Usually this error occur for our JavaScript code of the lightning component. So we can review the JavaScript code for errors or any conflicts and ensure that proper error handling has been done. That is, it can be fetched sorry, like if error is occurred, then we can show it on the UI using catch or something. And we need to use proper browser tools for debugging as well. Yeah. The next error message is lightning out app error. If you have used lightning out error, or if you are using lightning out app error, sorry, out app, then you could came across with this error, that is x is not defined. Again, x is could be anything like variable or property which we are defining there. So we need to ensure that that the referenced component x is included in the lightning out configuration and is accessible from our hosting page. Next error is failed to save undefined invalid component definition. So it can occur for our lightning component on UI, and we can fix it by checking for errors in the component markup or controller or helper code, and then we can ensure if all the required attributes are defined and verify proper component inheritance. Our next error message is invalid field X for standard object Y. So suppose it is saying that is invalid field name for standard object account. So like any of the field we are trying to reference for any object, but it is not there, or again we are using incorrect spelling for that field. So this error could occur, and we can verify if that field X exists on that object, or if we are trying to fetch it or reference it correctly, and if it is accessible to the user's profile as well. Then our next error message is failed to initialize a component. So again it's for our component, that is lightning component, this error message, and we can fix it by reviewing the component initialization code. For errors, we can ensure that all dependencies are properly loaded, and handle any asynchronous operations gracefully. So like if any of the properties, suppose we are using in child component, but while loading or while initializing that properties value in parent component has not been done, but it is being used in child component, then we could get this kind of error, and we need to ensure that all kind of dependencies are properly loaded or in sequence. And if any of the asynchronous process is being done, then we need to handle it gracefully. That is, we need to check it in what manner or in what sequence it is being performed, so that we can handle it in our component, so that this kind of error does not occur. Then our next error message is failed to create component X, that is no component named markup X found. So sometimes what happen when you are trying to create a new component in your org using VS Code or any other IDE, then you could get this error, that is we are failing to create this component, no such component markup found. So what we need to do, we need to verify that the reference component exist and it is properly being referenced in the lightning page or any other component. That is means suppose it could be found in any other parent component, so we need to check that as well. Then next error message is invalid page type X for lightning component. So again in the targets, if we are mentioning any page type, or even if Aura component we are mentioning the page type and we are restricting it for any other page type, that means we are not having it available for all page types, then we could get this error, and we could fix it by ensuring that our specified page type for which we are getting this error is compatible with lightning components first, and then we could try it by changing the different page type for our component, or we could try to refer it in different page type and check if it's the problem with component or if it's the problem with page type. Then our next error message is an internal server error has occurred while processing the request. This kind of error we could get while working with API from Salesforce. So we can fix this by monitoring Salesforce trust site for any ongoing incidents or maintenance activities. Or we can contact Salesforce support if we are not if we are not able to figure out what the problem is. Then next error message we could get error loading resources. It's also occur with it could get with lightning component while we are working with lightning components. This kind of error, that is error loading resources X. X could be the name of resource or any other feature related to the component. Then we could fix it by checking for our network connectivities issues. We can ensure proper CORS settings has been done and verify if our resource, whichever they will be mentioned in the error message, is accessible and properly configured. Then our next error message is validation errors while saving records. So while we are trying to save the record, we could get some error, or we could get this error while working with the Apex, that is validation errors while saving records. So we could fix them by checking if there is any validation rule related to that particular field or object existing, which could be hindering our procedure of saving the record, and ensure that all required fields are populated correctly, and address any validation errors before saving the records. Then our next error message could be invalid date time X. So for to fix this kind of error, we need to ensure that the date or time value X is in the correct format and within valid range, or validate user input before processing. This kind of error you could get while you are trying to work with any of the functionalities, and it is having some restrictions for any date or time, or we are supposed to use particular format of date or time in that particular field or anywhere. So you could check that if you are using the correct format, or if it lies within the valid range, or if user is in having the value input in it incorrectly. The next error message could be that field is read only X, and X here could be the field name. So for that field we need to check the field level security settings for the user's profile, and see if it is editable or not, and consider using workflow rules or process builder to update the field. Then next error message could be invalid parameter value X for parameter Y. There could be a scenario in apex or in any of the class that we are trying to pass some value for any parameter, but it is incorrect type. So like suppose we are having a parameter of string, but we are trying to send the value of integer. So this kind of error we could get there, and we can fix it by verifying that the parameter value is valid and it is properly formatted for the parameter, and update its value accordingly. The next error message could be cannot read property x of null. That is, we are getting property x value as null and it is not readable because we are not reading null value specifically there. Like in apex class or apex method, suppose we are having a method where we are using x properties value somewhere, and it is not supposed to be null in any case, but we are getting null value in one of the scenarios, so it will throw this error there. So we need to check if object or attribute which we are referencing using that x variable is properly initialized and it is not having null value while we are trying to access its properties. Then next error message is failed to save undefined, no component named markup x found. That is where the component is mentioned in the caps. It means the component name will be there. Suppose component name is error messages. So it is saying no error messages named markup found. So we need to ensure that the component X is existing in our organization, in our Salesforce or we need to correct the namespace, or we need to check the lightning component markup as well in this scenario. Then the next error message could be the X attribute on lightning Y is not allowed. So lightning Y is nothing but one of the markup in Aura component they are referencing, and X is attribute which we are trying to use in the lightning Y markup. So we need to check if the component markup, or we need to remove or correct any invalid attributes, and we need to use the appropriate attribute for the lightning y component. Next error message could be action failed, x is not a function. So in this scenario we need to ensure that function x is properly defined in the controller or helper and is accessible from the component, or we need to correct the function reference. Then next error message could be that we that cannot read property length of undefined. So suppose in one of for one of the variables we are trying to uh, use the length function or method, but we are getting error that is cannot read property length of undefined. So what could be the reason and how we can fix it? The reason could be that it is throwing either undefined value, or the variable for which we are trying to use the length function, it is not valid. That is, it's not valid for that particular variable. So we can fix it by checking if the object or array or variable which I was saying referenced is properly and initialized and not undefined before accessing its length property. That is, it should have some proper valid value. Then next error message could be fail to initialize a component. So if we are getting this error, we need to review if the component initialization code for errors or missing dependencies ensure that all required resources are loaded and handle any initialization errors gracefully. Okay, and if we talk about next error, that is apex heap size too large. So we can, if we can fix it, obviously this error we could get for apex trigger, apex helper, apex classes. So we need to optimize our apex code to reduce memory consumption, and avoid unnecessary queries or data processing, and consider using pagination or streaming for large data sets. Then our next error message could be unexpected token X. This could occur as for lightning component which would be having it from JavaScript code. So we need to check for syntax error in our JavaScript code. Uh, we could be missing semicolons or any bracket or spelling mistake. So we need to check for all of this in our JavaScript code. Then next error could be access denied. So obviously, as this error message is saying that is access denied, so correct permissions are not there. So we need to check if the user is having appropriate permissions to access the resource or perform the action and adjust their profile or permission set as needed. The next error message could be invalid parameter value X. So again, we are sending some parameter value to parameter which is not valid for that particular parameter, like integer value for string parameter. So we need to ensure that parameter value is valid and it meets any requirement specified for the parameter or validate user input before processing. Yeah. Then next error message we could get, that is error in a dot get callback and X is not defined. So this again we could get for LWC on UI. This error we will get on UI, not on your IDE or VS Code. So we need to check for spelling errors or missing declarations of variables or functions referenced by X. X is nothing but the method, and then we need to ensure if these are properly defined and accessible. Next error message is failed to execute post message on DOM window. It is related to LWC when we are working with the LMS or two different LWCs. So for to fix them, we need to review our code for any cross origin communication issues and ensure that proper configuration of CORS settings are there, and validate message formats and origin. Then next error message is maximum view state size limit, that is 135 KB exceeded. So again, as you can see, that error message is saying that there is a limit of view state size which has been exceeded. So we can fix it by reducing the amount of data stored in the view state by minimizing the component state, avoiding nested components with large data payloads, and using transient variables wherever it's possible. The next error message is the value provided for the filter is invalid. So, in even in LWC or in flows or in page, you could be providing a value to a filter, but it is invalid. So invalid, that is again similar to that is you are giving an integer value to a string variable. It's similar to that. So if you are giving any incorrect value, it will throw this error. So you can check the filter criteria specified for the report or dashboard. Okay, here we are talking about report and dashboard, but this error could get you can get anywhere, any other places as well. So you need to ensure that filter criteria specified is checked and ensure that the values are valid and meet the expected format or you can adjust the filter settings however you required. The next error messages field is required X. So X is the field name. It could be mentioned as that you might be trying to create a record or anything using maybe code or even on the UI. So you could get this error, that is, this is the required field, please fill in value in this field before creating or saving the record. Then next error message could be error loading script. It's related to JavaScript. You can get that in LWC. So you need to check for errors in your JavaScript code and ensure that all script resources are properly referenced and accessible, and verify network connectivity and security settings as well. Then the last error message for this video is an internal server has occurred while processing the request. Okay, so this one we have already covered, that we can monitor the trust site for any ongoing incident or maintenance activity, or either we can contact Salesforce support. So I hope you understand at least some of the error messages. There could be chances that you could not understand some of the error messages, or even you might not have been came across some of the error messages, but it could be because either you are not you have not worked with Salesforce so much till now, or you might be so good at working with Salesforce that you have not came across with these many error messages. But these are the some of the error messages which I have given in this video for you to go through. And if you are having any doubt in one of these error messages, or even apart from these you came across with some error message, so you can let me know in the comment section, and we can fix it together. And yeah, if you like it, please like the video, subscribe the channel, and let me know what's your opinion on this kind of or this video. And thank you, stay tuned.